And essentially, we are a sort of multi-service provider, and my part of the business is HR, which is why I've been invited to deliver this particular session. I'm one of the coaches on the AGP. I'm a HR generalist, chartered member of the CIPD, and my background is very much in HR and management training, so lots of sort of relevant qualifications in those areas, and a particular interest in employee benefits. So this session today will cover the importance of ensuring that benefits are regularly reviewed. We'll have a little look at some current industry survey results, which show the most valued benefits at the moment. We will look at how to design a benefits package, how to promote benefits externally, and also raise the profile of benefits internally in your organisations, and where you can go to get support with benefits. So this particular lunch and learn is particularly useful to you if you are maybe preparing to recruit at the moment. Maybe you're struggling to attract candidates for jobs. You might be receiving feedback from existing employees that suggests that your benefits need to be reviewed. You might want to benchmark your current benefits against current trends. And I hope that all of us would want to retain our valued employees and increase employee engagement. So first of all, if we look at the importance of regular review of your existing benefits package, the last couple of years in particular have been quite difficult for many people across the whole world. But what we are finding is that we're experiencing a much tougher recruitment market, certainly than pre-Brexit and pre-pandemic. A lot of feedback that we're getting as HR consultants is, and this is not industry specific, across many industries, that people are really struggling to just attract candidates for roles where previously they might have had, huge numbers and huge volume of candidates applying. Difficulties with recruitment and with retention is a common theme at the moment, and a benefits package can really play quite a key role in helping organisations to attract the best talent, but also ensure that existing employees are not tempted to maybe look elsewhere for jobs. Also at the moment, as we can see all over the place on the news, we are entering a cost of living crisis at the moment, and many employees are worried about that. So now is the time to spend some time really reflecting on the impact of your reward strategies and deciding if any sort of aspect of it needs to be amended or updated. But then beyond that, it shouldn't be a one-off activity. It is something that I highly recommend that you do on an ongoing basis, certainly as a minimum an annual review. So in terms of industry surveys, there are three that I've looked at in preparing the slides for today's Lunch and Learn. The first is the Expert HR Benefits and Allowances Survey, which was from 2021. They carried out a survey of 180 organisations across sectors to find out about their main strategic focus for the next 12 months. I've looked at the CIPD Reward Management Survey, again 2021. That took place though in October 2020, but the results were published last year, and it garnered insights from 420 reward professionals, and that spanned the private, public and voluntary sector. And then finally, I've looked at PerkBox Perks and Benefits Survey 2021, which was a survey of 1,532 UK employees to find out what perks they want. So I've tried to have a look at surveys that encompass businesses, reward specialists, and the employees themselves, so that we get quite a broad review. But one thing that is interesting is that all of the reports found that the landscape has changed post-COVID-19. That was something that was quite apparent. And for that reason, when I do start sort of talking about current current sort of popular benefits, I've split them into the ones that I think are likely to be more longer term and the ones that are maybe more of a temporary measure because of the situation that everybody's been in. So I thought a good place to start would be spending on benefits, to see whether or not spending is likely to change in terms of how much people or employers are spending on benefits due to COVID-19 and the economic crisis. The CIPD survey published this particular finding, and it asked respondents if they had changed how much they intended to spend on employee benefits, and found that most actually don't intend to change it at all. They might change where the spending is allocated, but in terms of the overall amount, quite a large number have said, 66% have said that no, they're not intending to change it. And then of those who do intend to change the amount that they spend on employee benefits, it was found that SMEs are the most likely to change the amount as opposed to larger organisations, and only 13% of public sector services are likely to make these changes. It was pretty even in terms of whether the change in spending would increase or decrease. So of those that were changing it, it was a pretty even spread on some were decreasing, some were increasing. And as you can imagine, the CIPD found that how businesses had fared during the pandemic had a direct impact on the spending on employee benefits. Those who are most financially hit were likely to decrease spending, whilst not a single respondent who had done well or even benefited, because some businesses benefited from the pandemic, but not a single one of them intended to cut its spending on employee benefits. And it was obviously those that did particularly well and benefited from the pandemic that had increased employee benefits. I think that's possibly influenced by a desire to maybe reward staff that have worked so hard during such a prolonged and challenging time. So in terms of spending on benefits, not huge changes, but there are some changes in trends in terms of what are the more popular benefits. So if we have a look at the current trends, and as I said, I've split it into temporary changes and longer term ones. So one thing that happened very much in response to the pandemic was a cancellation of social events, team days, and sort of end of year celebrations. We really found that decreased. Lots of businesses continued and had sort of online quizzes or online events. Something that we did in EST at Christmas, whereas we would usually have gone out and had a big Christmas party. We we supplied everybody with ingredients. Everybody came online on Zoom in much the way that we are at the moment, and we had a chef who helped us to all cook at home in our kitchens and cook along together. So there was lots of really creative sort of social events. But overall, the trend is that social and team days were cancelled completely. Something else that we found as a trend is amendments to annual leave policies. So in some cases, there were special arrangements during furlough. The government put in specific legislation to allow holiday carryover as well, where people were unable to take all of their holiday in a particular holiday year as a direct result of COVID-19. Although we also found that some businesses proactively allowed carryover regardless, because they felt that maybe their teams hadn't been able to benefit from and enjoy their annual leave in the usual way. So whereas normally there might be a no carryover policy, we have seen a trend where short-term policies have been introduced to allow people to carry over holiday. And in some cases, we've seen sort of temporary increased leave or rule changes in relation to how leave has to be used. Financial allowances have been put in place in some businesses, or maybe perks for people who are working from home. Again, that's seen as very much temporary measures rather than the long-term trend. And lots of temporary benefits put in place around mental health and well-being, and sort of financial support. Also, measures to alert employees to the danger of financial scams. We've seen that that's been increasing in terms of employers feeling that it's been important to support people. Overall, the CIPD found that most changes introduced in response to COVID-19 were seen as temporary by respondents. But what I think is important to maybe pay heed to is if pandemics are going to become more frequent in the future, which they may well do, employers should really be considering making some of those temporary changes permanent, or having a contingency plan in place so that it's included in the benefits strategy how changes in benefits will operate in times of sort of pandemic, so that rather than, we were all caught a little bit off guard, and the situation went on for much longer than I think most of us anticipated. So we all sort of had to find our feet and make changes in quite a sort of challenging and chaotic way. It is important now to recognise, well, if this is something that could happen again in the future, having that plan in place from the outset is really, really beneficial, and I think employees would really sort of value and benefit from that. But in terms of longer term trends, so the trends where we really see changes happening, I mentioned in short term trends about an increased emphasis on well-being. That is something that we're seeing as a continuation, and that might be from introducing trained mental health first aiders in organisations, and that's becoming much more popular now. It might be introducing an employee assistance programme. So an employee assistance programme is sort of an advice line, in effect, that the employer pays for, and its staff have generally sort of 365 days of the year helpline they can call, maybe if they're going through sort of personal difficulties, bereavement, breakup, financial difficulties, dealing with other changes in their lives, changes in work as well, and it's a confidential line that they can call and get some support. And some of the employee assistance programs also offer face-to-face counselling as part of the program as well. So that is a really cost effective, because they're not hugely expensive, and very much valued benefit that you can provide. Or if as not part of an employee assistance programme, counselling, paying for employees to receive counselling where it's identified that would be beneficial. That's another sort of wellbeing trend. There's lots of different apps out there, like Headspace apps or meditation apps and things like that, that employers might sort of promote to employees now and provide as a benefit. We are still seeing things like critical illness, life assurance, or private medical cover being provided. But something that is becoming more popular on the wellbeing front is healthcare cashback plans. So again, very cost effective, and often have other benefits attached to them, such as discount schemes and perks and vouchers, or indeed an employee assistance programme attached to it. But what a healthcare cashback scheme is, in effect, is a very usable benefit that most of your employees should be able to have a use for. So if, for example, an employee goes to the opticians, they need to pay for new lenses in their glasses, then under the cashback scheme, they would get a proportion of that money back. If they have an overnight stay in hospital, again, they would get a small kickback of cash provided to them. So it's quite usable, because it can be used for, if you go to the chiropractor, it's a very sort of good benefit to offer, because whereas with something like life assurance or private medical cover, the hope is that your employees are not going to need that, if ever, certainly not very often, whereas the health cashback plans tend to be something that are everyday use, not as big in terms of how much they offer, but an everyday use sort of cover. Then you've got things like virtual GP services. That became quite popular due to COVID-19, but it seems to be something that's here to stay. And you can actually provide benefits to your employees where they can access a GP service virtually, which can be really beneficial, because I know in my own experience, certainly it's not always easy to get to see a GP. So to have an extra backup is quite useful. So all of those sorts of things fall under the emphasis on well-being. Then we are finding cycle to work schemes, or maybe salary sacrifice schemes to be able to buy bicycles, or providing loans for bicycles. That is surprising across lots of the surveys. That seems to be really popular. That again might be partly because of the trend now, where maybe people have valued the time that they had during the pandemic to be out and about a lot more, and maybe have a greater focus on their health in general, and maybe now more people are looking to sort of cycle to work, but that is definitely showing up high on the list across many surveys. Improved occupational sick pay, that's something where employees are looking not just for statutory sick pay, but for some sort of enhanced benefit if they're off sick. Something that I personally would recommend is to offer some company sick pay, but you can get income protection insurance, whereby if an employee is off on long-term sick, after 8 weeks, 12 weeks, depending what you set the plan at, the insurance would kick in, and it could cover, for example, 75% of their basic salary for a period of maybe up to 2 years, which is a really valuable benefit if an employee had a more serious illness and needed a long time off work, and helps you to maybe retain them for a longer period of time, knowing that you're providing them with the means to sort of be able to pay for their cost of living at a time when they really need it in their life. Also, paid bereavement leave is something that is high up on the list. You may have seen that the government have now introduced statutory bereavement leave for parents who lose a child, but the trend in terms of benefits is for a greater extension of that, and to look at sort of your compassionate leave policies and pay in those circumstances. We're seeing a lot of holiday buy and sell schemes, which we didn't necessarily, they've always existed, but we didn't necessarily see as much of a trend in them previously. Now, a few things to just bear in mind here are that under the working time regulations, you get your minimum you get your 28 days statutory holiday in a year, which is derived from different legislations, but you can't sell that. But if an employer offers an enhanced holiday allowance, in addition to the 28 days, which includes the bank holidays, then it is possible for an employee to sell that holiday back to the employer if they would prefer to have a bit more money rather than the time off. Equally, you can have a scheme in place where employees can buy additional holiday, and it usually has sort of caps in place, so maybe maximum of 5 days in any sort of 12-month holiday period, but it is something that allows that sort of extra flexibility, which we'll come on to in a minute, because flexibility is, as you can imagine, just really high up on the list. Retail and discount vouchers, they've always been around, they continue to be popular, and they continue to be quite a cost-effective extra benefit that you can provide. Sometimes, if you have HR software in place, sometimes you get these type of perks as an add-on to the software automatically. Sometimes as part of a healthcare cashback plan, you might get perks as an add-on. So if you are looking at your benefits package and want what to offer, my advice would be to really look at what are the extra add-ons that you get maybe free of charge, with different providers to enhance your benefits even further. And then if we come on to flexibility and sort of remote and hybrid working. So as we know, some businesses have downsized their offices. Some businesses have closed their workspaces completely where they can. Some businesses are sort of hot desking more. We are seeing that flexibility in working arrangements is now required, I would say, by a lot of employees. And it's not always possible, depending on the job role, because some roles you do need to be in a physical premises, but where a role can be carried out from home, there really is a push for that to be allowed. So having sort of flexible working policies or hybrid working policies, or even the ability to do a completely remote role is something that is a trend. But as a knock-on effect of that, we're seeing a trend in what employees are looking for. So Perkbox found that money towards household bills is the most sought after perk for employees who work remotely. And I've actually got some additional figures from the Perkbox findings on how employees feel that the savings that businesses might be making because they've downsized or closed their offices should be passed on to them. So the biggest percentage was 74% of employees feel that if an employer is saving on office costs through remote working, they should pass the savings on by giving a pay rise. That was the very huge percentage. 74% felt that that's what they would like to see. But then 57%, so again, quite a high percentage, felt that they should be given money towards household bills, so towards their electricity, towards their internet, because if they are working from home more, then their cost of living is increasing. And if their work involves sort of needing to be connected to the internet, then they might be looking for some sort of contribution towards their utility bills, towards their internet bills, their broadband. And then 39% felt that the focus on benefits should be investing in perks that can be used at home. And then sort of, it went down from there into sort of some of the other benefits that we've already discussed, like wellbeing benefits and so on and so forth. So yeah, quite an interesting insight into employers' expectations, that they recognise they want to work from home more, but they feel that, well, that means the employer's saving money. They're actually saving money as well, because they're not travelling to work, and they have maybe more work-life balance and more time, but they're thinking, we'd quite like to see some of that financial benefit coming our way as well. And something else that is likely to be a trend is a reduction in working hours. So you may have seen that some businesses at the moment are doing a trial of what they're calling the 4-day week. I'm not a big fan of the term 4-day week, but I'm not going to get on my soapbox and have a rant. To me, what I feel the 4-day week is not well, we're not going to open on a Friday anymore, because not everybody works on a Friday. And the important thing to bear in mind with benefits is that it is illegal to treat somebody less favourably because they work part-time than their full-time counterparts. So if, for example, you were to say, well, we're going to close the office on a Friday and somebody works Monday to Thursday anyway, well, that's not really much of a benefit for them. So what I think we're really saying when we talk about the 4-day week is a reduction in the full-time equivalent hours for the same pay as previously. And I'm also noticing a trend that the 4-day working week is often based on a 40-week full-time equivalent. So in my business, for example, our full-time equivalent is only 35 hours. So we're not far off a 4-day working week anyway, but certainly decreasing the number of hours that the full-time expectation is, without decreasing the amount of pay for those hours, is something that I think is going to be seen as a trend over time. I don't think that it's going to be introduced quickly, and I don't think it's going to be mandated, but I think that it is something that we will see more and more employers doing. So does anybody have any questions on the current trends before we move on to sort of how to look at designing your benefits package? No? All good, right. So the first thing to do is to consider your budget. You know, it's really important to balance the cost of your benefit scheme with the return on investment that you're expecting to get. And with a limited spend, you know, amount to spend on benefits, it's important that you spend it in the right way. So it needs to be on things that people find useful, things that are going to be attractive, and are likely to aid recruitment and retention, rather than just a scattergun approach of, you know, offering as many different benefits as you can, because that can be quite costly. And if they're not really valued, then your return on investment is going to be quite low. So my advice is to list all of the benefits that you already have in place. And I would write down all of your benefits, even the statutory benefits at that stage, but looking at, okay, maybe 2 columns. What are the statutory minimum benefits that you have to offer that you have in place? And then what are the enhanced benefits that you've got in place already? And really sort of spend some time writing it all down. Because something that I typically find when I'm working with my clients is that there isn't anywhere where there's a definitive list. There's a little bit in one policy and a little bit in the contract and a little bit sort of in a team briefing that went out 18 months ago. But having that, you know, that review of writing down, right, what all the benefits that we actually already have in place is quite an important step. And then carry out your research into the current trends. So that would be essentially doing a deeper dive into some of the surveys that I've already mentioned. And there are quite a lot of other surveys out there as well. Some of the larger recruitment agencies publish surveys on it, for example. Some of the benefits providers out there will have their own data. And I would spend the time to really research into what the current trends are, because there is a lot more detail than, you know, this session allows for. I've just highlighted some of the key ones. And then I would carry out benchmarking against similar organisations, your competitors, and businesses that you admire, businesses that you aspire to be like. Hopefully we all want to be a great employer. So have a look at what other people out there are offering. And a good way of doing that is thinking about, where do you want to attract your staff from? Which sort of competitors or companies that you really admire would you love to attract some of their employees over to your business from? And who do you lose your employees to? Have you noticed any trends where, when you're getting resignations and you may be doing exit interviews or chatting to your employees about where they're actually going or receiving the reference request, are you identifying a trend that they're going to a particular set of organisations, and then, you know, maybe doing a bit of a deep dive to try and find out everything you can about benefits that they are offering? And the way to do that is to just research, look at their websites, see if you can find anything on there, search the internet for blogs they might have written or published, where they may be talking about the benefits they have in place. Look on the social media, see if there's any posts that they've put on. Look at their job adverts, because hopefully you'll find lots of information in other businesses' job adverts to see them listing, you know, what they are offering. And internal knowledge. If you have indeed recruited people from businesses that you think, you know, offer a good comparator for your benchmarking, speak to them, find out, you know, what benefits were in place at the time of leaving for them. And what you can then do is create another list of all of those benefits and have a look, you know, almost tick tick list, okay, which ones are you already offering, and maybe highlight some of the ones that you're not. Speak to your team, ask your team, involve them, ask them via employee engagement surveys or specific surveys on benefits. You could have little focus groups in place where they discuss it. You could include it as a section in a team away day where, you know, you really sort of get information, because it might surprise you. And the danger is that if, you know, as a senior leadership team, you just go off and determine on your own what benefits to put in place, they might not actually be the benefits that your own team want and value. So again, going back to the sort of determining budget and thinking about return on investment, you know, this is going to be important, because you need the benefits that you offer to be the ones that people want. Once you have decided on the benefits that you're going to put in place, you then need to really promote them. This will really help with sort of recruitment in promoting them externally. And my advice would be to use your website, you know, have a section on there on benefits, or if you've got a page on recruitment on your website, then that's a really good place to sort of put an introduction, you know, to the business and some of the amazing benefits that you have in place. Include them in job adverts. I think that is really important. To have, you know, not just about the business and about the role, but about what they can expect if they come to work for you. I'm a big advocate for actually publishing salary scales on your adverts. I think that it's important to be quite transparent, but also to be quite transparent about the different benefits that you offer and have in place. But just remember here that statutory benefits are not generally viewed as being a benefit. They are, of course, a benefit, but they're not, they're seen as being a basic right, rather than, you know, if you just say, oh, well, we offer statutory sick pay, or we offer, you know, minimum wage, or we offer statutory holiday. That's really an expectation, because everybody knows that they're going to get those things. So really highlighting, you know, the additional things that you have that are enhanced benefits and promoting them. And then when it comes to the job interview as well, remember that you're not just assessing the candidate and their suitability to join your organisation. That candidate is also assessing your business and making a decision on whether you're a good fit for their next career move. So it's quite important to promote the benefits that you have in place in the job interview, because it really can make a difference in tipping the decision, and particularly if they have more than one job offer on the table. Promote your benefits on social media. You know, you might put a blog out about, you know, the fact that you've carried out a benefits review and put new benefits in place. You know, might put posts out around that. You might, if you're having sort of focus groups or a team day, you might take some photographs of the activities that are going on and post that on social media to say, hey, you know, look at us reviewing our benefits, which will all help in the same way as I said, when you're researching for your benchmarking, then you might find old posts. Employees looking for a role might find your old social media posts as well, which will sort of help to promote the benefits that you have in place and encourage them to maybe apply in the future for your roles. I was told on Lunch and Learn, much the same as this one recently, that to remember that social media is all about being social. So engage on it. Comment on other people's posts, you know, put social media posts out there and get noticed. And something else that you could do is maybe encourage your employees to put reviews about the business on platforms such as Glassdoor. So when people are then looking up, you know, your organisation and whether you're a good employer and a great place to work, you know, they might find these reviews, and hopefully, if you are offering the benefits that are really valued by your team, they might comment on those, and it all helps to sort of promote benefits externally. Shout about them. Don't be coy. I think it's a really sort of positive and important message to get out there. But let's not forget the importance of promoting your benefits internally as well. And this is an area that I find that so many businesses fall down on. For example, where we've done benefits projects with employees on behalf of our clients, some of the feedback that we sometimes get back is that employees don't actually know about the benefits that are already in place. There's not one central place where they can sort of find a reference to them all. So sometimes in employee survey feedback, we might get the feedback that, oh, we'd really like to see an employee assistance programme, for example, and the employer's scratching their head thinking, but we've already got one of those. We've had one in place for the last 5 years, but maybe, you know, it isn't sort of stated anywhere, and people forget about it and don't even know that it exists. So my advice here would be to promote your benefits internally on through the induction process. So right from the employee's first day, you're telling them about the benefits that you have in place, and crucially how they can access those benefits and when they can access them. Because some benefits might be in place from day one, others maybe come into place after successfully passed the probationary period, for example. So, you know, making them aware of the benefits that you have, when they become available, what the eligibility is, and how they can access them. Then reinforce this either in the handbook, or you might even want to consider having a specific benefits policy. I said at the beginning of today's Lunch and Learn that it's a good idea to write down for your own benefit what it is you have in place. Well, write it down for your employees' benefits as well. Maybe have a specific benefits policy or specific section within the staff handbook that really sort of shouts about and celebrates the great benefits that you have. The CIPD actually found that over a third of respondents are reported that they're changing the frequency of their communication about benefits, because on its own, increasing frequency might not necessarily raise awareness to employees about the benefits and support available to them. So they need to make sure that the messaging is consistent and appropriate for the audience. But one way of helping that is making sure your managers are aware of the benefits, and that they are also constantly signposting, constantly promoting, and raising awareness with their teams. And you can regularly review it through maybe pulse surveys. We send out a pulse survey via an app every month in our business, for example, so we're constantly getting feedback. It's not a sort of once a year thing, or you might indeed just carry out an annual survey. In appraisals, give the opportunity for feedback to be received as well as given, and discuss it at team days as well. But line managers often do play a significant role in communication, and as such, they need to be supported to make sure that they've got the toolkits they need or the training they need, and the information, so that they become experts on the benefits that you offer, because they are the ones that are most likely to be sort of able to have the ear on the ground and support employees with benefits and accessing them. And as I say, just regularly ask for feedback all of the time. As a minimum, you should be reviewing your benefits annually, but if you can do sort of constant feedback, then that is all the better. So where to get support with benefits? Well, the first thing I would say, this is an AGP webinar, and speak to your relationship manager, because there are work packages that certainly we do. Our specialism is obviously HR. We actually do a specific work package to carry out a review of your benefits package, and we carry out the benchmarking on your behalf, and incorporate all of the different surveys. and do a report to the board with our recommendations to assist with designing a benefits package or to improving an existing benefits package. So that can be sort of quite useful to speak to your relationship manager if that's something that you'd like to explore, to see whether it's something that might be able to be supported under the AGP. But then there are external HR providers such as EST or lots of other businesses that do similar work to us. You might already engage with an external HR partner who might be able to assist you with a review of your benefits. And there are also specific benefits providers out there who can provide you with quotations and different benefits to consider. And in my experience, they are really very thorough and very good, and not particularly salesy or pushy. We work with one in particular that we recommend, and they are really, really proactive. But they're not pushy. They just sort of put forward the options, and then it's up to an employer whether they think that it's suitable for them. But then one final thing that I just wanted to touch on is making sure that you have any benefits, even if they're non-contractual, within your contracts of employment, because there's been changes under something called the Good Work Plan that mean that benefits should now be included within contracts of employment, even if they're not contractual, and it would state in the contract clause wording that they're not contractual. So it's really important that if you are updating the benefits package, that you're not forgetting about your contracts of employment, and that you are getting that updated at the same time. So that was sort of all of the key points that I wanted to get across. So I just really wanted to open the floor. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to sort of unmute, and I will do my best to answer them.
Hello, Kate.
Hi.
I've got a couple of questions here, which is in regard to the legality of some of the arrangements that employers make. And you've talked about writing in the non-contractual arrangements into their contract. But I'm finding that employers are getting very creative in retaining certain members of staff. And one I've heard is where a sum of money is placed each year into a separate account, and it can only be released after 3 years. That's the agreement. It's a gentleman's agreement. And I just wondered about the legality of that, and whether that can apply to one particular post in a firm, or whether if you apply it to one person, you have to generalize it across your workforce. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to make a comment about that before I go on to the other point.
So would that be effectively a bonus?
It's like a bonus payment, which is paid at the end of each year, but cannot be accessed until the third year.
Okay.
The agreement is, and it's a gentleman's agreement, and it's in order to retain, say, a chef in a situation in hospitality. Is that a legal arrangement? And can other members of staff challenging it say, well, you're being unfair? It is not something that is available to all of us.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting and quite multifaceted question, actually.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So
I know it happens.
Yes, so it is legal to have some sort of retention bonus in place, particularly where market forces show that it's difficult to attract and retain a particular role. Then you could have a retention bonus for employees who are in that role, to encourage them to stay for 3 years. But it would need to be something that it would need to be taxed and subject to national insurance contributions. It couldn't just be a sort of backhander or cash in hand payment. It would need really to be across all individuals in that particular role. So you could have it just for a specific role if there was a reason that it was just really difficult to retain employees in that role, but you would need to be very careful about it applying to all of those employees in that role, because you've then got the complications, for example, of equal pay. So if, for example, it was only offered to a woman in the team, and all of the others in that role were men, then you could have a discrimination issue in those circumstances. So not completely illegal, depending on how it's done, and whether it's all being done through the books, and whether there's sort of it's being done in an even-handed sort of way. But it can be just for a specific role, yes.
I think it's I regard it as a novel way of retaining staff, particularly key staff. But I think there are some legality issues about it, one of which is payment of tax. And the other one is about equality and fairness across the board. So my fear is that things like this are being used more and more to retain key members of staff, and employers are putting themselves in danger.
Yeah, I mean, it links back to what I said right at the beginning about it being such a challenging time for attracting and retaining employees at the moment. So you can almost imagine that some businesses might panic and put things in place without really thinking through the full implications.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not a straightforward question, that one. It is one that would really have to be looked at on its own merits.
The other one relates to the bicycle loans, which I find is quite interesting, because I've got someone, I can find accommodation for them, but it's out of town and they don't drive. And I was thinking of maybe giving them a bicycle loan or providing a bicycle. But I'm faced with the problem that there are other members of staff in similar positions who may then come to me and say, well, hang on, you've actually done this for this member of staff. Can I have a loan? And I end up with quite a large bill for people who want bicycles and want a loan for them. How do I stand on that one?
Again, if you are going to introduce a benefit, it should be for all of your employees. So maybe, like a salary sacrifice type arrangement for them to sort of cycle to work scheme. But yeah, it really opens you up to claims of discrimination or, inequality if it's only with the best intentions offered to one employee. So
exactly.
There is a need to have a proper scheme in place that sets out what the parameters are in terms of who is eligible. Is it after a particular length of service? Is there some expectation that if you provide a bicycle loan, that employee is using it for a percentage of their travel to work time? So it's not just a loan for a bicycle for mountain biking for their leisure time on the weekends. It is something that would actually be used, as a means of travel to work, for example. So you could put sort of parameters in place that might discourage just general requests for the loan.
Yeah, but particularly in hospitality, I think we are looking at creative ways of attracting members of staff. And in some situations, it's quite desperate. And certainly some of the employers that I've come across are being extremely creative and perhaps putting themselves at risk. But I just wondered what your view was about it. Okay, but thanks for that.
No problem. Any other questions from anybody? No?
Yeah, I have one here. Just knowing over the pandemic, there's a big push towards kind of support local, support independent. Do you see that coming through in kind of perk format, or actually being a strategy for retaining staff?
Not in terms of general benefits necessarily. I think that when it comes to support local, you see some sort of creative schemes. For example, one of my own clients at the moment support a local farm shop. So they have a sort of raffle every month, and one of their team gets a hamper, and it's filled with all of the sort of local materials from this farm shop. And we are seeing that things like gifts, end of the year gifts that are sometimes awarded, that often employers will look for sort of more local suppliers, things like that. But in terms of the bigger benefits, like your health cashback plans, for example, we're not seeing a particular trend in people looking for local providers of those. It tends to be most cost effective, if I'm perfectly honest.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Fab. Anybody else? No? Well, that's great. Well, thank you for your time. I think we're actually running on time, which is great. It's been lovely to speak to you, and hopefully I might have the opportunity to work with you as an AGP coach in the future.
Thanks, Kate, for giving up your time today, and thanks everyone for giving up your time as well. Viv, I can see your face. I know what you look like now. Hey! And I've seen that Suzanne's been kept busy there, and she's agreed with a lot I think that's gone on. So lots of information in that one. I might actually go and nag my bosses now. So if you see Lucy, you can tell her I'll be on her path for some of those there. But thanks everyone. Hope it's been useful to you. And don't forget to fill in your feedback forms if there's been anything there particularly, or anything that you would like to see in future webinars covered. We can get that sorted there for you as well. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and hopefully see you soon on another webinar. So have a good one. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone. Bye.